Welcome to Shenandoah Valley Produce Office.
Good morning, gentlemen. How's everybody?
I never thought in my wildest dreams that I'd be doing what I'm doing right now. Transformation from destroying lives to helping lives. In 2007, I was on the streets selling drugs. Two of my friends had just got killed and I escaped death. So I wanted another chance at life. I sought help with DC Central Kitchen. I graduated from the culinary art program. I'm here now at a school called Washington Justice Academy. I'm the sous chef. I'm making beautiful meals for kids because this is something that I always wanted to do, work with kids.
The auction this year has roughly 450 registered growers, and on the buyer side we're probably up in the 800s. DC Central Kitchen is very important to the auction here because they're one of our largest purchasers. I believe in what we do because it's just providing a good product. It's healthful and fresh, that's not harvested too far ahead of time. We feel very grateful that DC Central Kitchen wants to be a part of the produce auction and buy this fresh local produce from us. If we can change somebody's life in the city, we're pleased to be a part of that.
Look what we do. We're feeding kids healthy meals every day. 3,500 DC public school kids. Because some of these kids, man, when they go home, they're not getting meals. At least they know when they come to school, they're gonna receive a good meal.
The food here, it's always healthy and it's always good. I always have a salad, vegetables. I always have something like calcium, protein. How do you feel about it, Cameron?
I feel great. I love the fruit because every time we get a fruit every meal.
I like to have a good meal before I go to class so I can be on task and I can be ready to start my day.
How do you like the vegetables and the fruit? The collard greens are a little spicy and
yeah, the fruit is good, right?
What's going on, Slim? DC Central Kitchen has changed my life, and in the process, I am changing these kids' life. My name is Howard Thomas, and I'm a graduate of DC Central Kitchen.
My name is Dennis Showalter, and I'm the manager here at the auction. But only a small part of the picture.
DC Central Kitchen is
the bomb. It is though, man. DC Central Kitchen is the bomb.
Michael, that's simply breathtaking. So tell us how a guy with an MA who's had time in Japan, came back to the US, opened his own restaurant, ends up leading this, and from what you and I spoke about the other day, maybe coming up with some ideas that's going to help us solve some of these supply chain challenges.
Sure. Well, the first thing I should say is I spent a significant amount of time in the restaurant business before joining DC Central Kitchen. I even had the opportunity to own and operate my own restaurant for about 5 years. which I refer to now as my first experience in the nonprofit sector. So I was positioned well. But I also want to say that, and we're very humbled and grateful to be here and to show you this, not as a commercial for DC Central Kitchen, but as an opportunity or a reminder of the bigger picture that we're talking about here and what sustainability really means. And I think what was exciting to me as I was listening to the first panel and several of the other discussions since then is that so many of the things that we're doing at the kitchen were touched on. And a lot of times they were touched on by almost saying, well, you know, we just can't get our arms around that one. You know, that one might be a little too big. But the point is, it's not. And this whole thing started, and again, this might seem a little out of place because yes, this is focused on produce for a meat conference or a protein conference. But we very purposefully proceeded in that direction. You know, going after, very much a pun intended, the lowest hanging fruit. But the principles that are involved in this program, and it can be applied, and we are applying them to all sorts of other farm products. The way this whole thing started is we were looking not to be the sustainable guys or the local guys or to win awards for these kinds of things. This was enlightened economic self-interest. And I said, you know what, we're paying too much money to buy tomato-like orbs from a large wholesaler that are coming from Belgium. You know, there has to be a better way to put tomatoes and other product into the now 5,000 meals that we do every day for shelters, transitional homes, halfway houses in DC, have moved now to doing almost 4,000 meals every day for school kids. And now we've started a program where we're putting food, local, fresh food, into 21 corner stores in food deserts in wards 5, 7, and 8 in the District of Columbia. There are ways to do these things, and we were, in many ways, uniquely positioned to jump over a lot of the hurdles that everyone in this room faces and struggles with every day. You know, the idea of distribution. How can we really get enough of this product to make a difference, to make it work for the producers, the distributors, the processors? Where are we going to store it? How are we going to cook it? How are we going to move it through the system? Well, when you think about it, we're doing close to or more than 10,000 meals a day. We have a big machine that we're moving stuff through. We have a fleet of trucks. We have men and women formerly incarcerated, formerly homeless, chronically unemployed, that we want to employ. Give them jobs, put them to work. Why not do it in this way where we can combine all these things we're looking at? So the first thing we were looking at is, why don't we buy food? And I think I missed a little bit of this, but Ronnie, I was saying earlier today about the roughly 40 to 60% of produce that is produced in this country that ultimately ends up in the garbage or in a landfill. We reached out to farmers, and this is the little shift that if you remember one thing from what we're talking about today, remember this, is as a charity, a word that we loathe and disdain, but as a community-based organization, a nonprofit, another horrible word, but an organization to shift from charity to saying to all you guys out there, give me what you got left over. You know, the whole idea of charity is based on what's left over. And ultimately, it's unsustainable, okay? The idea, whether it's glasses or clothes or cell phones or food or money, it's unsustainable. It's what's left over. And we have to be better than that. So we said, as an organization, we appreciate and are wildly grateful for everything you have given us. But you know what? You're losing business. That's hurting your bottom line. You know, it costs you money to give me what you're giving me. How about we flip this paradigm, and we buy what you can't sell, usually for aesthetic or geometric reasons. Stuff that's too big, too small, funny looking. Nothing bad, nothing rotten, nothing half-eaten, just stuff that doesn't fit in the right box, to fit in the right truck, to fit in the right bin that consumers now expect in grocery stores and food establishments. We wanted to say, when you chop up a tomato and put it in a salad, it doesn't matter how big it was when it started. Same thing with a carrot or a cucumber or a sweet potato. But there is hundreds of thousands of pounds of that stuff out there that people can't sell. but it still costs some money to grow it. So we started doing that, and we financed it, financed all those trips down to the Shenandoah Valley with Orrin and his program, the farm-to-table program. They had this thing worked out with restaurants buying whole animal, but they didn't have, or there were times when they didn't have a reliable distribution mechanism. So we said, shoot, we're going down there. We can go get our veg, our protein, our product, and then we can stop by 2 or 3 processing houses on the way up, pick up what's already packaged, wrapped, frozen, ready to go, stick it on our truck, and deliver it to these restaurants around town and get paid for it. They want the product. They're willing to pay for it. The grower wants to get it out. The farmer wants to get it out of the valley. We need to get our stuff. Why don't we just work together, again, business, nonprofit, together doing business? And then we started thinking, well, shoot, man, there's all this meat out there. Why don't we start talking directly to the meat processing houses or the farmers growing this animal? And why don't we get a couple restaurants together that want to buy whole animal but maybe don't have the money or the resources or the need for the whole thing? And why don't we say to a restaurant, okay, you want these cuts, you know, for most of the animals, what, there's 30, 40% subprimal cuts that restaurants don't really want or have to re-engineer their menus or work into family meals. Say, we'll buy that. We can use that in the 5,000 meals that we do every day. And there can be a tax deduction for this. If we buy this at less than market value, whomever we're buying it for is eligible for a tax deduction because that's a contribution to a nonprofit. So we can take what we have to offer in a business sense, first starting with buying, and then combining the advantage that we do have, and put this in, then convert that into more business opportunities to use this food in locally sourced scratch-cooked meal programs in DC public schools to increase the demand. And we found situations now, we're working with Joe at T&E Meats down in the valley, where he can spec out a burger patty for us, grass-fed, grass-finished beef in the Shenandoah Valley, cheaper than we could buy the same patty made from an agri-farm through Cisco out in the Midwest. Because of looking at the different ways we can work together with small independent businesses. So what the thing I'd encourage everyone to think about is we all want to talk about thinking outside the box, right? That's a big thing. But when we looked at the kitchen, so this is our box. This is where we are. And these are the pieces in the box. What we really need to do is build a better box. And that's what we set out to do, and that's what we've done. And I know that we've only scratched the surface of what is possible out there. So I hope that after today we can continue these conversations, can talk about the possibilities if we open our minds up to not putting everyone in that same spot, in that same box all the time. Processor, grower, vendor, nonprofit. We're all in this thing together to do the same things. And if we let ourselves expand our minds, open up our minds, and play different roles, I think we have huge, I know we have huge opportunities in front of us. How's that?
Thank you so much. Now, we've probably got time for just 2 questions for Michael. Michael will be joining a panel toward the end looking at the solutions. So does anybody have any burning questions? That lunch must have been really heavy.
I should say Dave Robichaud over there from VDAX, his colleagues introduced us to, which Showalter was on there? Or Dennis, at the auction many years ago. And I have to say, the first time I went down there, and I told them what we were thinking about doing, they looked at me like I had 8 heads. They did not trust me. Oh, here comes this guy from the city. They're going to rip us off. Something's going on. But we just went back and went going, paying our bills. And now, as you heard him say, we're one of the largest, if not the largest, purchaser of product from that auction. And they've built 2 new buildings to support that auction, mostly with the revenue that we've been able to put in there, but also spin-off revenue that we've created by reselling a lot of that product that is being grown now specifically for restaurants in town. And we're the distribution mechanism to get that out of the rural area into the urban setting here in DC.
So Dave, you're from the Department of Agriculture in Virginia. I think we owe you a great round of applause. Congratulations.